I'm here only to speak about how we see a massive need for making car design more relevant to the world around it. As fashion designer Vivienne Westwood recently pointed out, art is a form of understanding the world around us. Now, she's totally right. This means that cars, which are part of the technology we have around us, makes very little sense to who we are today, and especially who we're becoming to be tomorrow. So in a way, technology sort of lacks a relevance and lacks a philosophical context. Or technology requires philosophy, something like that. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about some research work that we've been putting together. When I became responsible for the design strategy of an electric car company, I was working quite a lot on trying to understand where is the relevance of cars in the future and how do cars blend in to all the other aspects of, for example, a city. This sounds like a very complicated problem, but it's actually quite simple. It's just about awareness. We need to understand what's happening in society, and we need to kind of leave a little bit of car design studio, understand what happens with culture, and understand what happened with technology, and how an intersection of these emergent bubbles could potentially lead us to see how behavior can transform the way we transport ourselves. We have urbanization on one side. We have the typical numbers that everyone hears, the city of 2030 with 4.9 billion people, etc., etc. We have all the trends. We have the definition of a city as a network of networks. And we have, on the other hand, the Generation Z, the new people, those born after 1994 that have started to buy houses but still have show no interest in buying cars. The problem with this is obviously car companies are freaking out, but it's a bit irrelevant for us to be expecting them to be excited about owning a 2-ton lump of wheels and responsibility, when these guys won't even wait 3 seconds for a website to download. This image summarizes a lot of what I'm trying to say, because there's it's a well-known example. It's a supermarket chain in Korea who, understanding the irrelevance of asking customers to drive a car whenever they needed to buy a carrot, they put together a centrally organized delivery system that works with QR scan codes. So people, as they flow through public transportation in the city, they will scan, say, bread and carrots and eggs and send them over to a database, and there will be a package waiting for them when they're arriving home. Now, this obviously lowers the global carbon footprint of that company by understanding a more efficient transportation strategy. But it also redefines the way new generations are understanding and assigning social value to potentially social leaders, because we appreciate and begin to follow those who demonstrate that sharing is caring, that sharing is a new way of blending in with the environmental and financial crisis that obviously our generation has been exposed to. And in a world where everyone is immersed in this self-centered bubble of connectivity and connections and social networking, it is quite interesting to see how collaborative consumption has started to transform as a way of a new meaning of city, in which we connect with strangers even on the internet, and thus we reinforce the idea of a community. This means a lot of things for many different industries. To mine, it means basically that car ownership is about to become extinct in a way. We see an irrelevance of a business model that pushes people to buy cars. That is a really interesting thought if you think that car design has been for decades about curating the aesthetics of a vehicle. We sit in these white cubes all around the world, making sure that every single line is where it should be. Yet we don't understand how the expectations of people with these products are more on an individual way. So in a way, service is starting to replace products, and of course business is all about access, not ownership. Now this is really cool. This is an image from a car sharing scheme in Amsterdam in 1969. It started by my friend Lutz Schimmelpenninck. And I don't only show it because I really like the aesthetics of that vehicle. I show it because to show that even though only 20% of the population is aware of car sharing has been around for a long time. The problem is that car companies have not understood how to address it as a market of its own, and thus the customer doesn't really understand where's the difference between car ownership and car sharing. This brings two problems that I believe are intrinsically related to the concept of data management. On the one hand, we have a business problem, which means car companies don't really understand, or car sharing companies don't really understand how to make money out of this. And on the other hand, we have a trust issue, because users don't really feel like they want to let go of this private environment. This is exactly where I think research should be pointing at in terms of car design, because data can solve these problems. Data, it has the power of making these connections, but at the same time, at the risk of taking away some of our privacy privileges. Now, the costs are there. The United States alone spends hundreds of billions every year on traffic-related costs. And that's not, obviously, keep in mind, it's not unique to the people who own cars. This is affecting everyone who lives in a city. So I believe governments will start taking action on this. But what would happen, imagine, for example, if my city, Mexico City, got together with Jakarta and Shanghai and LA, who together own a fleet of 31 million vehicles, and obviously all the costs around them. What would happen when they put together a public electric car sharing scheme that connects people, and it's also seamless, and it also promotes people to interact, and it also promotes people to walk, and it could even be for free if you take the advertising targeted advertising that, for example, Facebook or Google is using. The problems with that are massive, because if you can imagine you're on your way to work in a few years, and your boss spills a cup of coffee in his laptop, and suddenly there's a 40 minutes delay on your day that could perhaps be connected to your calendar, it could be connected to a GPS, and it could propose that you, for example, would, instead of going direct to work, we could pop by the museum because they have a great exhibition on brutalist architecture that you were just happening to look at on your trip to London. Or maybe you could go by the shop because there's this chandelier that your grandmother loves collecting stuff from. Or maybe it could propose that you take another route where there's less pollen because your child is allergic, and of course it's a beautiful day and you should have the windows down. It could even propose, for all I know, that you pick up a random stranger because you're interested in yoga, whatever. The problem with that is that whilst this is very good in terms of an experience, all these companies, the museum, the antique shop, and, for example, your health insurance company, will be very interested in paying money for you to take these suggestions. So these social and cultural questions that go way, way, way ahead of our car design bubble, it's actually very important for us to understand them, because they will lead us to try to keep the idea that technology should provide better user experience and better quality of life, and not the other way around. And that brings me to my story today, which is really exciting. The story, if Instagram is correct, started 39 weeks ago in London, me and my best friend James, driving around in an electric car, thinking about how interesting it would be. It is that the legislation in the United States has been pushed by the Pedestrian and the Blind Association, and even the PET Association, to promote that electric vehicles should have a sound. The issue is that while we've been waiting for 100 years for this technology to come around, then suddenly it's out and it's creeping silently, ready to hit pedestrians. The idea is that there will be sounds, you know, the beep, 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 beep forward, the backwards, that car companies are starting to plan on. And that was really our main interest. Me and James sat together and discussed how amazing opportunity this would be to actually redefine. Of course, silent cars was a beautiful idea, but if people are getting hit and there will be a law, then we could actually redefine the sonic landscape of our cities. So we looked at car companies, and unfortunately, we didn't really get much feedback out of that. Basically, car companies are looking into replicating the sounds of internal combustion engine through a speaker into the landscape of our cities. So that's what car companies think our cities should sound like. And I don't think you have to be a genius to understand that that's a pretty stupid idea, because even the World Health Organization just came out recently saying that, you know, noise is the second environmental cause of illness. it's a great opportunity. As I said, we spent so much time curating every single line, making sure we communicate the brand values of whatever car company. All of this sort of reminds me of that really famous phrase by Henry Ford, who said that if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Of course, this actually happened. People did put horses on top of their cars when cars came around. And it is ridiculous to think that some people think as consumers when they are working with strategy, because it's very hard for them to let go of the past, and it's very hard for them to understand all the different aspects that influence the future development of our products. Now, we did see an amazing opportunity to redesign this landscape and to improve the relationship between citizens and urban landscape. Of course, with all these numbers of all the cities that will be in the future. The problem is as well that we realized that if me and James were to design these sounds, the world would be a much uglier place. So James came up with an amazing idea to work together with a sound artist. And this is a person that is touring the world doing sound and interaction. And as you can see from this text, it was very hard for me to see it at the beginning. It didn't take that long for me to understand the power of working with Holly Herndon and Matt Dryhurst on this project, because they do to music through technology what we want to do to the car industry. So we put together a really unique collaboration between artists, designers, and a group of sound engineers at our company. And we did a really cool installation that we presented at the Frankfurt Motor Show a couple of months ago. We had 5 concepts. The first one is a core. It's supposed to be like a soul of a car. It's supposed to signify that the cars are alive and around us. But we didn't want to design a specific sound. We didn't want to come up with like a crazy frog ringtone and therefore pollute all the world and be the guys on Wikipedia that are like, those guys fucked everything up. So instead what we did was design more like a formula that reacts to the environment around and creates a sound that is atmospheric. For acceleration, we wanted to question a little bit why the explosive sounds of cars come from a fuel, when in this case we actually don't have that fuel. So we wanted to replicate that expansion of sound through texture, if you can imagine. And we didn't want to increase volume. We rather wanted to develop that in a way that raises the awareness that there's a vehicle coming in, but at the same time, doesn't have to be there the whole time, because then the wind will take care of the noise requirements. So we created this like outro of the sound that was also quite interesting, I think.
Our system decelerates from wind noise with sonic enhancement, adjusting levels to ensure that it's maximally audible but never a nuisance.
For turning, we developed a sound that was trying to question how cities are all about space and cars are very two-dimensional, very linear in their movement. So we wanted to create something that was not a beep, 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 beep forward, but as opposed it actually was trying to communicate a three-dimensional attitude to it. And we ended up creating something that is more like a Nintendo game, a really bad one, where you can do stuff like that. All we're trying to do is not really give solutions of anything here. We're actually just trying to open up a dialogue, because we see that the law that is becoming a law now will restrict a lot of the opportunities for enhance the experience of people walking in streets, which is a lot of them. Warning was our most technical sound. We developed it with this idea that the car would scan the frequencies in the city, and it would scan all the frequencies in the city, and it would find the most relevant way to communicate through directional speakers to that person that is directly in front of a car. And finally, our most poetic concept, perhaps, this is when we started thinking of a vehicle as a more collective way. We didn't want to create something that was individual. So we started imagining what would happen if we were to have cars collaborating and understanding with each other, and create a subtle but quite elegant symphony to the city, to the background hum that right now is characterized by engines. Obviously, like I said, we were just at a motor show putting out questions, and it's been really fantastic to see all the replies from people, from car companies. We've even got people from art galleries calling us and asking us, well, what is this going to become? Because we really see a huge potential. But I mean, the main idea between the conversations that we're having now is that it's not about transportation, and it's not about design. It's not about car design. It's about how we fit in right there in between. So for that reason, I picked up this slide, which is it was a talk about car design in 2002 by the then head of design of BMW, who talks about cars being an object of art. I want to stand here and say that cars are not art. In fact, car design is quite irrelevant to the modern culture. But I am really happy and really pleased to be part of a group of people who has the opportunity to change that. Thank you.